Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Joy Mbanugo. Joy, it's great to see you again. You've been on the show many, many times, formerly with Google, now CFO with Service Rocket. So it's great to connect with you. I love talking to CFOs because CFOs really are one of the most important roles in an organization. You have over 20 years of audit, tax, business operations, financial service, treasury, and financial planning analysis experience. But one of the things I think that's so important with CFOs, and if we can dive right in and talk about, is the power to forecast.
Yeah.
And, and so I thought we could maybe kind of dive in there because I think a lot of companies right now are really kind of, looking ahead and trying to forecast in this adjusting volatile market that we're in right now. So with your CFO lens, what guidance and wisdom can you share? Good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I love our chats. I think being nimble. So the company I work at now, we're not a calendar year in, fiscal year. And so we're actually working on our 2024 plan. And one of the things we're looking at is working closer with the business and with sales on actually creating a forecast or plan. So finance folks, we love to use all sorts of methodologies to come up with a forecast. Like, okay, we can use a percentage of growth. And so, we grew 20% or on average 10, 15% over the last 3 years. We're going to apply that growth rate to this year. And that may not necessarily make sense. That's one way to do a forecast. But I think, and what my team is great at Service Rocket. They do most of the work. I just talk. They actually meet with the line of business to look at the forecast on a week by week basis. And so we adjust it depending on the week, and we're small enough where we can do that. At every company that may not scale, but I think understanding in this environment, you're going to have some customers that may disappear overnight.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. It's not a situation you want to think about. Or what we also are seeing happening now is you have customers who need different billing terms. Prepayment versus net 30-60 payment terms. And so when you look at stuff like that, that changes your forecast. It changes your cash forecast. It changes a lot of things. So I think for CFOs now, just being nimble, there's so much to keep up with. But from a forecasting standpoint, being nimble and staying close to sales and a line of business is just imperative.
Yeah. And so what are they? So, I think sometimes people in sales don't really have a connection with the CFO.
No.
And right. And so, but I always feel like they should. A CFO typically is kind of the right-hand person to the CEO. And they really don't have much interaction with a lot of times the rest of the company in many cases.
Yeah.
I always have felt that that's kind of a mistake because I think CFOs can lend so much insight to so many different divisions and give so much direction to how things are seen, and then reverse engineer some wisdom that really can even help managers and salespeople. And so I would anticipate that changes. How do you see your role as a CFO?
Yeah, I think I'm part of every team. I think it's probably annoying, but actually our head of sales and our I wouldn't say close because I just joined, but I've put time on with her and all the other execs just to meet on a weekly basis. Or weekly or biweekly. It's one of my goals. How can I be a CFO of a company if I don't understand our pipeline? And how will I understand our pipeline? We're not that big where we have like a proper sales operations team like other companies do. So I talk to the head of sales and she will tell me pipeline. And then we have a BI person who runs some data in one of our analytics tools. But I meet with all of the execs, the entire exec team. I want to know what's going on. The GC, the head of IT, the head of customer success. My team generally meets with a line of business leads, and sometimes I join in on those calls. But I agree with you. I think to the extent, depending on size, to the extent the CFO can, it's not scalable in every company, but our company, I think it's 330, 350 employees. I can join a good
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah. Yeah. Because typically it's kind of the COO that's more kind of ingrained
Yes.
in the people, but the
Yeah.
CFO, you're a CFO that can actually communicate and connect
Yeah.
with. So and I think you enjoy people.
Yes.
Sometimes CFOs like being kind of just in the background,
Yeah.
but I think the future of CFOs is going to be what you're talking about, more ingrained in the front
Yeah.
lines of all the different sections of the business.
Yeah. I mean, I
Uh,
think gone are the days where you could just be, I don't want to say a bean counter because I'm an accountant and I love accountants. But gone are the days where you can just be a bean counter type CFO, just close the books and, take care of cash and just kind of go along BAU. I think now you have to think about not only forecasting, but also think about strategy and be a strategic partner to the business. And if you don't understand, what the business actually does, if you don't understand pipeline, if you don't understand the customers, how can you come up with a strategy, right? Or come up with being a right hand. One of the things, or one of the jobs of the CFO, being the right hand to the CEO, is helping the CEO come up with strategy.
yeah,
And you can't really do that if you haven't talked to the rest of the business.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's talk about now. Let's kind of rewind the forecast and talk about day-to-day operations.
Yes.
Right? How should a CFO today be looking at the day-to-day operations,
Yeah.
the budgeting of that?
Yeah, I think you have to really trust your team. You can get bogged down in the details. Like every day there's a new issue. And because I'm new and people are excited and happy to have a CFO, like I get copied on a lot of stuff and I'm like, hey, you don't need me. I'm happy to weigh in on things, but I have a great controller who's amazing. She also acts kind of as our treasurer de facto, just given our size. And then also have a great head of FP&A, and then workforce planning also rolls up into me. So I look at it like on any given day, Tuesdays are like my craziest day. And I look at all the meetings that I'm back to back, like from 8 in the morning until maybe like 7 at night. And I look and I'm like, okay, do I need to attend all of these meetings, or can some of my team attend these? And what's the most urgent thing, or what's most important to the business? What's going to help the business grow? What does the board care about? Because we have a board. I have to think about that as well. What does the CEO care about? What's going to impact profitability? So I look at it and kind of prioritize, like,
Yeah.
I can't be in everything. Like there's a tax issue here. There's a, billing issue there. I have to trust my team to do their jobs and then weigh in where I'm needed.
Yeah, I love it. So let's talk about, you've got a really incredible background. You led Treasury Tax Initiative at Google to streamline cash management of 100 billion. You worked at Blackrock, where you led the taxation of financial instruments, securities, lending 3 trillion assets under management. And so, with your history of working with Blackrock, with Google, and now a Service Rocket. What did you learn from your past, from
Yeah.
BlackRock and from Google that you're bringing into Service Rocket?
I think one thing for me is structure. So BlackRock was very structured. And also from EY, I have to give a lot of credit to the partners who mentored me and helped me start my career at EY. So one is structure on the more softer skills side. And then on the technical side, I think I didn't even realize at the time so I started my career in Cleveland. I did everything, you read it, I don't have to go into it. But when I left Cleveland, I was graduating law school and I moved to DC, and that's where I started doing treasury/capital markets work. And I didn't think about or realize how important it was until probably I got to BlackRock, more so when I got to Google, because I was a treasury tax lead, and even more so now because we have cash. And so cash management, I think that's one of the things that I am very strong at, passionate about. It's also kind of like personal investing, which I love as well. So that's just a skill, whether it's 3 trillion, $3 trillion or
Right.
$50 million, like it doesn't matter. just being able to think about cash. I think a lot of folks, not all CFOs, depending on what type of CFO you are, like a lot of FP&A focused or centric CFOs focus mainly on strategy and growth and forecasting, but forget about cash management sometimes.
Yeah.
Controllers don't, because they're used to cash management and closing the books and all of that other stuff. And so I think that's just something that's unique in my background, besides all the time I spent in tax, that's really helped me and definitely helping me in my current role.
Yeah. What are one or two things that CFOs need to make sure that they pay attention to that maybe in your experience sometimes they forget to?
Oh, that's a good question. One, talent management. I think you probably think you pay attention to your team, but the bigger your team gets, the harder it is to pay attention to everyone. And I think taking a step back and thinking about talent development for the entire team. I've worked at companies where it's been important, but it hasn't been a priority, if that makes a difference. Like, oh yeah, we want you to develop your career. But really it's up to you. And if you don't do anything about it, we don't care.
Yeah.
And I kind of taken a different approach with my team. Like, hey, I will meet with like my directs, on a regular basis. But I also want everyone on the team to have a career development plan. Not for this year, but not, for fiscal year 24. I want everyone to have a career development plan and think about succession and thinking about how folks need to grow their careers. And then the other thing,
I just want to comment on that real quickly. I think that's so important. I work with a lot of companies who really subscribe to what you're talking about. And I'm working with a lot of the leadership and the managers and the salespeople, even in adjusting markets, because they know that investing in their people is so important for the near term and the long term, and to keep them engaged. It's so important. And I agree with you. I don't think enough companies look at their talent and say, okay, we're going to invest X amount of dollars, even though maybe we can't see the ROI in the next, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but we can in the next decade.
Yeah. And even if you don't invest dollars per se, because I know companies are like, well, we have layoffs and we don't have extra cash and blah, blah, blah. You can invest time.
Correct.
That's something we all have. And so, whether it's having someone shadow you on a call, giving people stretch assignments, asking them what they want to do, Google's famous for 20% projects. Like my current team, someone went on vacation and another person had to step in and do this person's role. And I said, oh, one of the things you're doing, I think you should just continue to do it. And me and, the senior director, we'll just review what you do. There's no point for us doing it. Like, you can grow and develop. And so talent development is one. And then I think we can't underestimate, or one thing that I didn't think about before I became a CFO, I knew about it and thought a lot about it, but thinking about strategy in a different way, maybe in a riskier way than you would. And what I mean by that is there are some things, especially in like PE, VC backed, or even companies that don't need any backing, like ours doesn't, because we're cash rich at the moment. Thinking outside of the box on ways to grow. So, right, most people think, oh, we need to go public, or we need to sell, we need to do this, but just thinking about the traditional ways you would grow, and maybe taking like one tiny step forward and thinking a little bit riskier, because that may be the thing that helps the company grow. And you don't have to wait for an investment banker to come knock on your door and say, oh, Joy, I think you should look into this company. Like, I think the burden is on me to clear my schedule and to think about, okay, how can we grow in 1 year? How can we grow in 2 years? How can we grow in 3 years? Like, I can't predict the future, but being the right hand, or one of the right hands to the CEO, I need to be saying to him, hey, have you considered this? Have you considered that? He probably has, but I want to make sure I'm always thinking about growth. Like, one of my roles, like, I have split personalities because I have so many as a CFO, but one of my roles in strategic finance is to think in that way and think a little bit riskier and outside of the box than maybe other folks in the company would.
Yeah, it's great. Joy, it's always great to connect with you. Quick speed round. Since we last spoke, a book or a TED Talk or an article that had an impact on you.
There was an article that came out, I think it was Fortune, on how CFOs are using Chat GPT, which I haven't had time to dive into, but super interesting. My only thoughts on it: do not put your company's private financial data in Chat GPT.
Right. Yeah. If you can send me that article, I'd love it. I'd love
I
to.
will. I'll send that to you.
And finish this sentence. One thing every person, regardless of the CFO or a salesperson or a leader, one way they should be budgeting themselves a little bit more effectively is
Calendar time, actually time management. Manage your own time, manage your own calendar. Like really pay attention to it. And I don't mean like, oh, I have this meeting at 8 o'clock. It's like you need to set aside time to actually work, to focus. And some people call it monk mode. And I tell my husband, my nanny, even my baby, who's tiny, and I'm like, look, mommy needs to go into like serious concentration mode. And I don't need anybody knocking on the door unless something is really, really wrong. I just need like an hour or two of like absolute silence.
Yeah. I love that. And then one last question.
Yes.
If you had to extract the company you're at right now sounds tell everybody, we really haven't talked about what your company is. What is the company? I totally forgot. I'm so used to talking to you about other stuff, but talk a little bit about the company and who your ideal clients are.
Yeah, so ideal clients probably, I would say pretty much anyone is ideal client. So we are mainly an Atlassian partner. So any Atlassian products, Atlassian cloud migrations, we are one of the system integrators and I think a platinum partner. I can't remember. I have to go on the website. So we do a lot. That is mainly what the company does. And one of the things that I think is really neat that I found that could be a little nerve-wracking when you first try it is Jira. So it's like creating issue tickets. And so you kind of track issues within a company based on these Jira tickets. And so that's one of the things we use internally and one of the things we implement externally. And I absolutely love it. My company has been around for over 20 years. The CEO, Rob Castaneda, very interesting, crazy, great, awesome, amazing human being. Can't say enough great things about him. I met him 2 years ago and he offered me a job 2 years ago. He and Peter Marquez, who is the chief customer officer, customer success officer, they're just great. And it's a great company. Like it's interesting. The culture is very much better together. And I know that sounds trite or kind of like kitschy, but it really is like better together. And one of the slogans for the company is "We got your back." We say it to customers when we're doing integrations or projects. We say it to each other, to other teams, to competitors. My CEO says that to competitors. I'm like, just most people wouldn't. But he's just a good person. The company overall is just great and has grown tremendously. They also develop apps that can be built on top of Atlassian and NetSuite as well. That's one of the things. I did a talk with another company on NetSuite and NetSuite integrations. But yeah, I could go on and on about it. So
it's great. Well, it's great. Well, it's great to be somewhere that you love. It's great to be passionate about what you do. Yes. And it's great to have an environment where the people around you, just make you want to be better and continually reach your highest potential. So it sounds great. Joy, it's always a pleasure connecting and talking with you. Thank you. Congrats on your new role as CFO with the company. Think Community, Joy shared a lot today. I just want to highlight one thing. You all know I'm a business coach. I work with people who are successful but stuck, get them unstuck. I love this podcast because I get to talk to people who can help you get unstuck. And one of the things you talked about was talent management. And I think that is really so important. Whether you're a CFO, any type of C-level exec, any manager, if you're a salesperson with a team, really kind of, do an audit of your talent management and what you are doing to get your people to invest in themselves and or invest in your people. I think it is so critical. Joy, tell people where they can connect with you if they want to learn more.
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you just type my name in the search bar, I think I'm the only Joy Mbanugo. Or you can go to my website, www.joybanugo.com. You can just look at the spelling of my last name. I won't spell it for you. or you can find me, or you can email me. Email address is joy, Joy, at mbanugo.com. That's joy at joybanugo.com.
I love it. Joy, a pleasure. At Think Community, you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. Joy, this was great. Thanks so much. Good to see
You're
you.
welcome.
Congrats.
Thank you.